Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. I am honestly so pumped you're tuning in today because we're on a mission to build a highly actionable, science-backed playbook for mastering the back and biceps. If you've been grinding at the gym but feel like your progress is just stalled or your back simply isn't growing the way you want it to, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to break down the exact biomechanics, the programming, and the nutrition you need to completely transform your pull day. But before we get into the heavy lifting, I gotta ask you a serious question. Are you risking a shoulder injury literally every single time you train back? Just think about your current workout routine for a second. Is it unbalanced? Is the way you're structuring your exercises actually harming your joints without you even realizing it? Well, check out this staggering fact from the data. Lifters who ignore horizontal pulling movements and focus way too heavily on vertical pulls can increase their incidence of shoulder pain by up to 23% over a training cycle. 23%, that is a massive jump. You see, when you prioritize only one plane of pulling, you completely change how your scapula and thoracic spine move. And that imbalance, it usually shows up as sharp discomfort, weaker lockouts, and ultimately, totally stalled progress. So to fix that, here is our roadmap for today. Number 1, the anatomy of a pull day. 2, vertical versus horizontal balance. 3, science-backed back exercises. 4, mastering the perfect pull-up. 5, programming your routine. And finally, number 6, fueling growth and recovery.
All right, Section 1, Anatomy of a Pull Day, Understanding the PPL Split.
Okay, let's dive right into this. What exactly is a pull day? Well, it's the pull portion of the super popular PPL, or push-pull-legs training split. Now, technically speaking, sure, all muscles pull by bringing their origin and insertion closer together when they contract. But our human skeleton is arranged so that some of these contractions result in a pushing motion while others give us a pulling motion. A pull day focuses entirely on the latter. It groups together exercises where you're actively pulling weights towards your torso. The primary drivers here are those massive muscles of your back. We're talking the latissimus dorsi, the rhomboids, the trapezius, and the rear delts, along with the biceps brachii, which flex your elbow.
Section 2. Vertical versus horizontal balance. The one-to-one rule.
Now that we know exactly what we're training, let's look at the two distinct planes of pulling motion. Why? Because finding harmony between these two is absolutely the ultimate cure for stalled progress and those nagging injuries. Let's juxtapose them. On one side, we've got vertical pulling. Think pull-ups, chin-ups, and lat pull-downs, where your arms move vertically relative to your torso. These are your ultimate lat builders that give you that coveted back width while really emphasizing overhead stability and shoulder extension. On the flip side, we have horizontal pulling, like bent over rows or seated cable rows. This is where you pull the weight towards your torso horizontally. These are what build the depth of your back. They heavily target the rhomboids and mid-traps, which by the way is absolutely vital for good posture and proper scapular retraction.
So here's the real game changer, the 1-1 ratio. The research shows that you should really be striving for a 50-50 split between vertical and horizontal pulling volume, especially early in a training cycle. Balancing these planes isn't just about playing it safe and preventing injuries. It's about raw performance. The data actually shows that a balanced approach can increase your overall back strength by 10 to 18% over a training block or mesocycle, compared to a program that just heavily favors one plane over the other.
Moving right along to Section 3, Science-Backed Back Exercises, the EMG data.
Okay, we know we need balance, but which exercises actually light up these specific muscles best? Let's check out some fascinating electromyography or EMG study data out of the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. If you want to fire up your latissimus dorsi, the data clearly shows that pull-ups and chin-ups create the highest muscle activation. But watch what happens when we look at the middle trapezius. The highest activation shifts entirely over to IYT raises, bent over rows, and seated rows. The lower trapezius? That's best targeted by IYT raises. Meanwhile, the infraspinatus responds best to a mix of all of them. And this brilliantly illustrates and proves, scientifically mind you, that there is literally no single best back exercise. You absolutely have to use a variety of horizontal and vertical movements to effectively train the entire back complex.
Section 4, Mastering the Perfect Pull-Up, Anatomy of a Mistake.
Since that EMG data clearly crowns the pull-up as the undisputed king for lat and infraspinatus activation, we really need to diagnose some common poor form. Let's be honest, the pull-up is easily the most butchered vertical pulling movement in the gym. So let's walk through the kinetic chain fixes you can apply right now. First up, your grip. Don't go too wide and don't go too narrow. A shoulder-width grip is the sweet spot. Going too wide shifts the load completely away from your lats and unfairly targets the brachioradialis muscles in your forearms instead. Second, when you lower yourself, go to full extension, but don't let your shoulders completely unpack so your biceps end up touching your ears. You want to leave a little space there to protect the integrity of the shoulder joint. Third, keep your elbows slightly out in front of your body in the scapular plane. Don't just flare them straight out to the sides. This puts the lats on a much better stretch. And fourth, don't just reach for the bar with your chin. Arch your back slightly and attack the bar with your chest.
Now, what's really interesting here is this concept of plugging the energy leaks. When you do a pull-up, your body shouldn't just be hanging there like a loose, dangling noodle. You need to create total body rigidity. Point your feet downward, straighten your knees by flexing those quads, squeeze your glutes, and engage your abs. Doing this whole routine ensures that the force you're generating travels efficiently right through your kinetic chain rather than just being dispersed and wasted.
Section 5. Programming your routine. Building the workout. All right, let's move on and see how all this anatomy and biomechanics knowledge builds into a concrete weekly gym routine. We've got the balance, we've got the exercise selection, now let's put it all together. Here's a fantastic, beginner-friendly structure to get you started. A typical, highly effective pull day session doesn't need to take all afternoon, right? It should really only run about 45 to 60 minutes. You always want to kick off your routine with your heaviest, most demanding compound movements first. That's when your central nervous system is totally fresh, long before you move on to isolation stuff like bicep curls.
Let's look at the specific programming recommendations. Notice how perfectly balanced this setup is. You've got your vertical pull with a pull-up or lat pull-down, immediately followed by horizontal pulls with the bent-over row and the seated cable row. Finally, you isolate the biceps at the very end. For those heavy compound lifts, you're looking at 3 to 4 sets, and you want to rest 2 to 3 minutes between sets to maximize your force generation. Now, a major key here is to leave 1 to 2 reps in reserve on your sets. That exertion level is known as an RPE, or rate of perceived exertion of 8. Basically, you aren't going to absolute muscle-shaking failure on every single set. You're intentionally leaving a little bit in the tank to allow for progressive overload week after week.
Section 6. Fueling Growth and Recovery. The Science of Nutrition.
Now we shift to the final and honestly, arguably the most important piece of the entire puzzle, nutrition. Because look, you can have the perfect 1-to-1 pulling ratio and literally flawless pull-up form, but muscle protein synthesis requires 2 distinct things. It needs the resistance training stimulus, which we just perfected, and it needs the proper fuel. Let's punch out the exact scientific target for protein. Research suggests that for most lifters, muscle growth is maximized at intakes around 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of total body weight per day. Consuming this amount ensures your body actually has the building blocks it needs to repair the micro tears in those lat and rhomboid muscle fibers that you just created during your heavy rowing sessions.
But whatever you do not neglect your carbohydrates. The recommendation here is to consume 3 to 5 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight per day. Carbs are absolutely critical for maintaining your muscle glycogen stores. If those stores drop too low, your muscular force generation simply diminishes. You quite literally will not be able to pull as hard or lift as heavy during those big compound movements if you aren't properly fueled up with carbs.
We have definitely covered a lot of ground today, from the EMG data to creating total body rigidity. But I want to leave you with a provocative thought to challenge your training right now. The next time you step into the gym and look at your workout log, ask yourself, what is my pulling ratio? Are you neglecting that horizontal plane and actively risking your shoulder health? Are you plugging your energy leaks? If you apply this science-backed framework, balance your pulling planes, and nail your protein targets, watch your strength and muscle growth absolutely skyrocket. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep pushing hard, and I'll catch you next time.